Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Woomin Shim, sixth former here. It's my fourth year here, and I'll just start my travel speech. Identity is vital to me because I question whether I actually have one. To start off, I want to talk a little about my background. Despite being a Korean citizen, for more than half of my life, I've lived outside of Korea. My family moved to Scotland when I was 10 months old. After a year, we moved to England, first South Kingston, then Wimbledon, and living there for a total of 4 years. We returned to Scotland and remained there for another 4 years until the time came to relocate to Korea. I lived in Korea for 5 years before I came to Salisbury. During my years in Korea, I built an image of sincerity and kindness because my parents told me to be true, told me to be unselfish. I formed a facade that adapted to each scenario, playing the fun kid when with friends, calm, responsible when with adults. I could change with each situation around me. Eventually, I felt that my original personality faded away and multiple masks remained in my hands. In middle school, I experienced a never-ending cycle of questioning of my identity and arrived at the conclusion that I had lost it. This was a crisis. Identity is what distinguishes one person from another, and I did not wish to live while acting out a character that was required from others. During that time, while all this was happening internally inside of me, I always interacted with my dad, just like with my family in general too, that we'd always watch EBS, it's like a BBC version, and we watch documentaries about education and how education style is different in Korea compared to the rest of the world. And I guess that is what inspired me to search for what my true interests were in life and create my own future. So Salisbury School was the very break that I needed in my life. By surrounding myself with a diverse perspective and unique learning experience, I absorbed new perspectives in a controlled manner, accepting the ones that the newly discovered me deemed appropriate. My mask crumbled away and I finally glimpsed my true identity. Despite that, I know that searching for my true self is a task I must tackle throughout life, but it's no longer a torment and I plan to enjoy it since it is a journey that will define me. However, during my second year at Salisbury, in my sophomore year, I experienced a turning point that would leave a hole in my heart. This hole dragged me down to the deepest of myself, which pushed me to be who I am and I want to be. So the clock ticks back to the winter break of 2014 in California at my aunt's house. After an early dinner, my uncle calls me out, and he says, "Listen carefully. Your father's in a critical condition. You'll need to go back to see him." At first, when this hit me, I'm like, okay, if it was an accident, if he was just hospitalized and he'd be healed, I would not need to go back. So I was then I am silent, and he says, your father's ruptured blood vessel, which means that his blood vessel popped in his brain, and because of internal bleeding, he's still in hospital, and without saying the last words, I knew what he meant. So I went to the bathroom, and I stare in the mirror and see my trembling eyes. I try to think in the most possible rational way, and I was sort of expecting the worst case scenario. So that night, driving crazy to LAX and getting on the plane before an hour, I fly with my aunt, and I just hoped for the best on the plane, and I slept through it. And when I arrived in Korea, before even going through the immigration office, my aunt checks a message from my family, and it did say that it was bad, and I knew from what it meant to be bad at that time frame. So at that time, I tried to put a mask of being calm and strong to appear that I do not need help and that I'm fine, because the news it was I guess it did not hit my brain at that time, but I guess I knew it deep down from my heart. So, and in the hospital, I see my mom, sister, brother, cousins, aunts, uncles, and grandparents, and just having all exhausting faces keeps on shattering and myself and the wall that I had built up for the mask. And as I walked through the critical, patient rooms, and my rationale keeps on telling me that I have to be prepared to meet the worst. But it just does not work that way when I went there. His hands are cold, his eyes are shut tight, and his silence is painful. He cannot put a mask on. Simply I was in tears. When the doctor came in, wiping the warm tears off my face, I grabbed his hands firmly to see him off. Morning of December 28th, 2014, I hear the flat lightning. Death is the last stage in life, and knew his presence was situated on the outer boundaries of my scope. The notion of the world revolving around me was the most childish thought I had. I believed that nothing unexpectedly would happen within my sphere, yet a single event shattered this belief. My father's death forced me to reconsider my core beliefs and reconstruct them. My grandfather has always told me that I'm the pillar of the family, and I also accept it as my fate. Korean society expects the oldest son to lead the family. My priorities were the given, but I never expected to inherit the position so early in life. The idea was a shackle that stripped me of my freedom. As the responsibilities were pushed onto me, a major duty that I had to undertake was to participate in all family meetings. At a meeting following immediately upon my father's death, my family members told me to return to Korea regardless of my own wishes and plans. At this time, I planned to fully assume the responsibilities as the pillar, but a question lingered in my mind. Was this what I truly aspired to become? There was no perfect answer that would satisfy everyone, and so once again, I looked to my father for advice. No matter how independent I am, I was dependent on my family, especially my father. Whenever I drifted onto the wrong path, he would guide me step by step back on the appropriate path. Without doubt, I can say that I was building my life based on him. Therefore, when he passed away, I was left without a role model. For weeks, I mindlessly followed my daily routine. There was no process of the mind or expectation of the future. Time felt still. It was over spring break that I reflected on the meaning and the impact he had on me. I cannot come up with an explicit answer, but I sense my father would say, ultimately, you are the owner of your life, so follow your heart down the road you want to go, even though that course may conflict with me. In truth, those words could have been mirroring my inner self. Nonetheless, I now had a faint idea of the path I should take. Settling in Korea and giving up on the opportunities that America provided was not the answer. I had to stand up for myself and pursue my ambitions, even if that was going against my grandfather's wish. I was compelled to make a critical choice due to my father's death. Be the path my family chose for me, or carving it as I want. Becoming the protagonist of my own life was the first step to my beginning. Even now, as I stand in front of you, my desire to pursue a college education in America is in itself a declaration that my familial expectations cannot confine me. I will walk down this path, even if it's covered with thorns. And I guess, just to add a last saying, I always imagined that if I had the power, if I had the choice in that situation to turn my father's death away, and I thought, maybe if I did not come to the States to study, to be in Salisbury, and maybe that would change maybe like the butterfly effect of how cause and effect would have happened. And I always have nightmares, and I always regret that I regretted for a while that maybe I shouldn't have come, maybe I should have stayed in Korea, saw my father for maybe more years, or maybe even, I don't know, for the rest of my life. But I always came to think that is not the right way to think about it. And now I think that if I did have the choice to go back in time, and maybe that if I didn't come to Salisbury, if I had to make a choice between not coming to Salisbury and staying in Korea, I think I would still take the choice of staying, take the choice of coming to Salisbury, because I may regret it like 1,000 more times for the rest of my life, but because of coming here, I guess it's shaped me to who I am right now, and I precious the moment of now right now. Thank you.